Hi everyone. Hi everyone. It's Mrs. Sahota here. And following on from Miss Letcher's assembly about Sir Tom Moore, this is a book that's been written about him and it's called 100 Steps. And just over here, you've got a speech bubble. There's a picture of Sir Tom Moore. And over here it says, tomorrow will be a good day. Okay, so I'm going to read this. It is quite long, so you might want to pause it and then come back if you need to have a break. On a bright April morning, a 99-year-old man stood outside his house and held on to his walking frame. His name was Captain Tom Moore, and he had pledged, which means promised, to walk 100 lengths of his garden in time for his 100th birthday, to raise money for the doctors and nurses risking their lives to save others. Tom took a deep breath. He knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he told himself one of the many important things he'd learnt during his long life. The first step is always the hardest, but unless you take the first step, you'll never finish. So here's a picture of him in his garden, and as you can see, he's got something to help him, his walking frame. So doing what he decided to do was walk around his big garden 100 times in time for his birthday, for when he turned 100. And this is something that he learnt. Again, the first step is always the hardest, but unless you take that first step, you'll never finish. So he knew it'd be tricky, but he knew he had to take the first step and continue, and then he would be able to finish. So it's kind of like a little bit like when we're at school or we're learning at home. Sometimes we find things tricky, but when you start it and you start trying, it will get easier. Let's see what happens in this story. We learn a little bit about Tom and his life before when he was younger. Tom grew up in a small town in Yorkshire. His dad built houses and his mum was a teacher. Even though most boys avoided the kitchen in these days, Tom loved spending hours cooking with his mum. Enormous cakes with coloured icing, thick crusted pies, and fancy 3-course meals. She taught him that it didn't matter who you were. And she said, you can do and be anything you want. And children, everybody can be that. So if you want to be a superstar, a doctor, a singer, whatever you want to be, this is something that's really important. You can do and be anything you want. When he wasn't in the kitchen, Tom was outside playing with his dog, Billy. They went everywhere together on adventures in the garden and exploring the town. But best of all, they loved running wild and free on the Yorkshire moors. Billy was named after Tom's favourite uncle, who raced motorbikes and taught Tom how to ride. At night, Tom would lie in bed remembering the roar of the engine and the feeling of freedom he felt as the wheels spun beneath him. One day he said to himself, I'll have a motorbike of my very own. Tom worked hard at school. In lessons he was quiet and well behaved, and he got on with his teachers and classmates. And here's the teacher teaching, and can you see what they're teaching? 2 times 2 equals 4. 3 times 3 equals 9. He's teaching times tables. But have a look at how the teacher's teaching. This is how I was taught when I was at school. There was a blackboard and the teacher used chalk to write on it. Not like we have at school now with our lovely fancy whiteboards. But he wasn't above bending the rules. When he was 12, Tom bought his first motorbike and he rode it everywhere he could. He would even hide it in the school grounds so that he could look at it at lunchtime. Look, all his friends are over there playing in the playground and he's looking at his motorbike. And Tom's motorbike wasn't the only thing he would sneak into school. Look what he sneaked in. His dog, Billy. I think we would notice if you brought a dog to school, don't you? As Tom grew older, he spent more and more time riding his motorbike. He and Billy would spend whole days racing across the moors, grinning ear to ear as the wind whipped through their hair and the sun bounced brightly off the motorbike. Every day can be an adventure. So here's Tom and here's his dog, and they look like they're having lots and lots of fun. In 1939, when Tom was 19, war was declared. That was World War II, okay? It was a worrying time. But Tom wanted to serve his country, and so the next year he signed up as an officer in the army. Okay, seagulls wheeled overhead as he waved goodbye to his family to go far away to fight. So here they're all getting on to go far away, and I think that's Tom there. Tom's ship was bound, which means it was on its way. Tom's ship was bound for a country called Burma in Southeast Asia. It made many stops along the way, from the bustling, dusty harbour in Freetown, the capital city of Sierra Leone, and then here you can see the ship, to the awe-inspiring Table Mountain in Cape Town, South Africa. It took many weeks to reach Burma, and Tom would never forget the people he met or the incredible things he saw throughout the journey. Life in Burma took some getting used to, especially the enormous bugs and creepy crawlies that lived in the jungle, including a spider as big as Tom's hand. Oh, I wouldn't like that. Tom made use of his love of engines and his talent for fixing things by teaching the troops, and the troops were all the people that were in his group, so his regiment, teaching the troops how to ride and fix motorbikes and then tanks. So because Tom was really good at engines, he first taught them how to fix motorbikes and then big tanks. War could be scary, and Tom missed his family, but he and his new friends made sure to have fun too. They would take holidays around the country and even travel to see Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world, but it was cloudy, so all they could see was fog. And on special occasions there were parties and concerts. Once the very famous singer Vera Lynn made the long journey from Britain to visit the troops and to sing for them. Tom could hardly believe that he was seeing her with his own eyes. So here she is, Vera Lynn. And there's a song, I Know We'll Meet Again Some Sunny Day. And that's a song that Vera Lynn sung. So even though Tom, along with the rest of the world, was pleased when the war finally ended and he could go home, he missed his friends and the amazing sights he'd seen. Day after day, Tom worked with his dad building houses. So you can see him there with a wheelbarrow building houses. And at night he dreamed of the adventures he used to have. Tom wasn't ready to give up adventure though, and he rediscovered the wonderful feeling of freedom that he always found riding motorbikes. He started to race in events called time trials, and he won race after race after race. Tom knew that even when the sky seems full of dark grey clouds, the sun will shine again. So what does that mean? It says Tom knew that even when the sky seems full of dark grey clouds, the sun will shine again. And it's like when we're saying, even though things might not seem very good at the moment, and for a lot of us, we are all staying at home and learning from home, and it's hard, but the sun will shine again, and we will all be together. So Tom knew that even though things aren't very good now, but they will get better. And look at how amazing what kind of things he's done. So he didn't just want to build houses in the day and give up adventure. He loved riding his motorbike, so he started to go in time trials. So it's kind of like when you're playing a computer game and you win, he started to win, but in real races where he raced his motorbike, and he's got a trophy there. And the greatest adventure of Tom's life began when he met Pamela. He thought she was the most beautiful person he'd ever seen, and made excuses to travel the great distance between their hometowns to see her. Before long, they fell deeply in love, and if you can see here, I think that's their wedding day. After Tom and Pamela got married, they had 2 little girls, Lucy and Hannah. They taught the girls about cooking and about fixing engines. Okay, so anyone can fix an engine. You don't have to be a boy to fix an engine. Look, here's Tom and his daughter. Hannah was the smallest, so her job was to change the oil in the car. Tom had never forgotten the lesson his mother had taught him. No matter who you are, you can do and be anything you want. As the years went by, Tom and Pamela's family grew and grew and grew. Lucy and Hannah had children of their own. And here's a picture here. So you've got Tom and Pamela, a dog over there, Harry. You've got Lucy. You've got Tom, Hannah, Colin, Benji, Georgia, Charlie, Max and Thomas. And there were always new dogs. Over the years, Tom made sure that the family had lots of adventures, and their days were filled with laughter and mischief. And the dogs made more mischief than anyone. So look at this picture. What's happened to Tom and the dog? And here someone, I think that's Colin, saying, "Oh no!" But sadly, when Pamela, that's his wife, was 63 years old, she got sick. And 8 years later, she passed away. Without Pamela, Tom was very, very sad. But he was surrounded himself with his family, and they helped him to find happy days again. In fact, these years were the happiest of his life so far. His family showed Tom that at the end of the storm there is a golden sky. So even though his wife died, he was lucky enough to be with his daughters and his grandchildren, and he said that these were the happiest years of his life. And again, at the end of the storm, so the storm's when it hasn't been very good weather, so at the end of something horrible happening, there is a golden sky, so something beautiful happens. They certainly kept him busy fixing things, so everybody's coming to his shed. Can you fix a light? Can you fix the clock? Can you fix a teapot? And he made sure to go off for the odd adventure. I wonder what he's doing there. Like travelling to Everest so that he could finally see it with his own eyes. It was a very long journey for a 90-year-old, and Tom could hardly believe it when he saw Everest at last, the mountain rising, bold and majestic, ahead of him. It took his breath away. It's never too late for one more adventure. So when he was 90 years old, he really wanted to see Everest, and he went. So when a dangerous disease swept around the world, Tom knew he had to do something to help others, just as his family had helped him. And he's reading the news there, and it's all about COVID-19. And he's thinking, I've got to do something. Together they had an idea, so his family and him had an idea. To raise money by walking 100 lengths of his garden, to raise money by walking 100 lengths of his garden in time for his 100th birthday. Every day Tom went out into the garden and slowly but surely walked step after step after step. And before he knew it, the whole world was watching him. If you look at these pictures, you can see, who do you think this important lady's over here? It's the Queen. He was knighted. And then over here you've got lots of important people who were all watching him, and he encouraged other people to do the same as him, to raise money. And here's his 100th birthday, and then here they've got these special planes, which are called Spitfires, that went over his house to celebrate his birthday. So the whole world was watching him, because one step has the power to inspire 100 more. So lots of people were inspired by what he did. Tom couldn't believe how many cards arrived for his 100th birthday. As he read the outpourings of love and admiration, he thought about all the people who had written to him and what he would like to say in a reply. For all those finding it difficult, the sun will shine on you again, and the clouds will go away. Remember that tomorrow will be a good day. So he had these lovely messages, and his message is that it doesn't matter what's happened today, and today might not be a good day, but tomorrow things will get better. And people from all over the world loved what Tom did and sent him birthday cards, and they donated money to him. And he raised over £33 million for the NHS, for all the doctors that are working against this horrible disease. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I really wanted to share it with you, just so that you learned a little bit more about Sir Captain Tom Moore. Thank you for listening.